Welcome, everyone, to episode 104 of Into the Nexus. This is Into the Nexus for 5/6/16. I don't even know when it is right now, but we have a very special guest today, revealing the Heroes Summit meeting. Joining me today is Jeff Cannata. Thank you for coming on the show in Garrett's stead, as he is at DreamHack at the moment.
I'm so happy to be here, man. You know, I'm a huge fan of this show and always excited to talk about Heroes of the Storm. So thanks for having me.
It's been a delight having you visit us so frequently recently.
Yes. No, I hope I don't wear out my welcome.
Not at all.
I have, on my own video game show, I've been sort of banned from talking about Heroes of the Storm because I talk about it too much. So it's nice to have an outlet for all that energy.
Absolutely. Well, in this week of all weeks, you got to have an outlet.
Oh, man. You're not kidding.
Sitting on our hands for days watching those tweets come out. A little bit of squirrely misinformation there as they squeezed in two heroes who I thought were going to be one, and I was thinking dragons with polymorph. What is going on? But that ended up not being the case.
Yeah, we got two awesome, sort of crazy outside the box heroes with talents that make me so excited for this game because it continues to show that the designers are willing to throw in crazy ideas and make them work somehow. It's really exciting.
So I gotta ask, you were at the summon meeting.
Yes.
What was that like? What was the summons you received? And hopefully you wrote at least 2 secret elevators down to a very deep basement.
Yes, yeah, we were blindfolded and drugged and then put into cars. A van just took us off the street.
Oh.
No, it was very cool. It was a really neat event, actually. I'd heard of, we'd gotten invitations a couple of weeks ago, and so when I heard you guys on the show talking about like, when do you think the ranked update will happen? And it's I don't know if it's BlizzCon maybe. I was like, no, I know it's happening soon, and guys, I want to tell you. Yeah, so it was really cool. We went down to this hotel down in Newport Beach, very near the Blizzard home base down there in Irvine, and it was cool. They had a whole setup for playing games. I guess it was 5, 10, 15, 20 different computers all set up for 2 games of Heroes. They had a big presentation, but the best part of it was that we basically just got to hang out with the designers for almost a complete day. Really, 12 hours. I was there from 9. I left. It was still going until midnight, but I left about 10 or 11 o'clock. But starting at 9 a.m., they were completely accessible to us at all times. I had an actual scheduled interview with Dustin Browder that'll be on my show DLC on Monday. But I also were just sort of rubbing elbows with people. We were sitting at tables, and designers would come over and hang out and just be like, "Hey guys, what are you curious about? What do you want to talk about?" Went to dinner with them, hanging out, talking about all the new systems. We were able to ask any questions we wanted. Just the accessibility and the amount of time we got with them was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
About how many people were at this meeting total?
Well, they did it over 2 days. I was only there one day. The second day, I think, was all Asian press from Korea and Japan and China.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the day that I was there, I would guess 35 to 40 people. A lot of names and personalities you would recognize, a lot of professional gamers, a lot of casters, sort of the who's who of what you see in the professional scene. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I was a little intimidated sitting down and playing with some of those players because, there were a lot of very high skill players. Dreadnought was there, and everybody you would think.
Yeah, I like to imagine I can carry my own, but sit me across from Grubby, and
yeah.
I'm getting butterflies for this whole thing.
Oh, me too, man. I was like, I know I'm going to be the weak link on my team. But yeah, people couldn't have been nicer, and there was definitely, a couple of games where I was like, oh, one of the biggest differences between me and a pro gamer, one of these really good Heroes players, is that they can pick up a brand new hero and know what to do. And me, I'm like, well, maybe when I get to like level 7 or 8 with this hero, I'll be competent, and people were doing stuff with Chromey right away where I was like, oh my God. So anyway, it was very cool.
Yeah, her kit does suggest some things that I'm excited for, but I'll get into that a little bit. Heroes team, you said they were very accessible. Yeah. Looking good. I'm concerned about those guys. They've been working their buns off.
Yes, they all seem to have a lot of passion for the game, and they really wanted to keep growing. That's one thing I came away with is like how genuinely into this game those guys are, and they really it's coming from a place of wanting it to be great. And they were actually really excited because they've been working for a long time on these new systems, this new rank system, and they were excited to unveil it because I think they were really genuinely proud of it. I wish I had the guy's name off the top of my head, but he's really new part of the team. He was only hired, I think, 2 months ago, and he came in and instituted a lot of the changes that we're seeing now for the ranked system. He used to work on EverQuest and a lot of other really high-profile games.
Dang.
Really nice guy, a lot of information. He was very open about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into some more of that hero-specific stuff. Particularly, I want to know how you guys decided. Did you have to draw straws to see who got to play the new heroes and who was stuck on support? But
I did play Roshan with somebody over it, but go ahead.
Okay. But let's talk about Season 1, of which I think on this very last show, episode 103, I said not till BlizzCon in all my depressed glory.
Yeah, June. It's coming in June.
Yeah, week of June 15th. And we're looking at proper seasons. Right now, they're looking at about 8 to 12 weeks. And Dustin Browder has gone out and said that this first one will probably run a little bit longer as they start to gauge what time that season kind of wraps up.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the designers, in speaking to them, they all favored having a quick turnover so that on the shorter end of that scale going forward, like eventually ramping up to a place where it really is more closer to the 8-week side, which I think is pretty exciting. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready for those quick rewards. I'm ready for it to feel more like Hearthstone and Diablo that way.
Yeah, and we actually are getting some pretty decent rewards, at least from Team 1. I mean, I've been getting portraits for years from those guys, and to get anything physical is just fantastic, particularly when I know a mount like that with, Elemental Thrall in the mix could net them some real dollars.
Yeah, it's a really sharp-looking mount, and there's some really cool variations on it that let people know, like whether it was a Team League mount that you earned or a Hero League mount. I think they're pretty neat looking. I definitely am excited to get one for sure. And it sounds like moving forward, they want to make sure that those season rewards are mounts or skins or not just portraits. They really want it to feel meaty and feel like it's something you want to strive for.
Definitely. And we did get the announcement that these are now leagues. So we get rewards for our previous season, the preseason, and that's going to be that wolf mount we talked about, a bit of gold for people, portraits, and epic mount depending if you can get to certain ranks. But we are going full bronze to diamond, 5 division each, with then Masters League and Grandmaster kind of being their own thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess only the top 500 people in any region are going to be designated as Grandmaster, which caused quite a stir at the summit that I attended, because a lot of people were saying there will probably be a fair number of pro level players who aren't Grandmaster, which is a pretty crazy thing if you think about it. But yeah, and then you earn points, and you can, at the top tier, there's no end to the amount of points you can earn, so you can still show how awesome you are even if you are at that very, very upper echelon.
Yeah, I remember that being a complaint back in SC2, particularly because when a season would roll around, it was usually on the weekend or right before a weekend, and at least in SC2 days, there was something every single day. Some tournament you could watch somewhere. If it wasn't the GSL, it was, MLG doing a production, and they just simply didn't have the time. They were doing customs with their teammates, making sure they played elite games, but you couldn't find the pro players on the actual Grandmaster list.
Wow.
That was a lot of complaints. Here, it's going to be top 500 point earners. When you get to Masters League, you stop going through divisions, and you just are ranked in order of how many points you've been able to accumulate and keep without losing. And
Right.
if you've got the most points, the top 500 points, you get to be in that Grandmaster maybe for a day, because it's updated daily.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about that stuff at the summit because all the people that were there are sort of in the mix in that stuff, and I was sort of just sitting there going like, yeah, but how does gold and silver work exactly? because that's I know where I'll be sitting. But I think that stuff actually is being handled in a much smarter way as well. Up to this point, evidently, your placement matches have put you slightly lower than what the system actually thinks you should be, so that you feel some momentum upward, so that you start winning some games and move up. But they said that that ultimately is kind of disappointing, because you feel like, oh my God, this placement told me that I'm, 3 or 4 levels lower than I think I am. That's not fun. So now the placement games will actually stick you exactly where you are, and they expect you to really earn moving up, which is I think pretty cool. And also, it's not going to be a straight percentage disbursement of the player base. So as it sits now, each level that you go up is about, I think, 2% of the total player base in skill level. So it's evenly distributed across that entire, spectrum. But what they're going to do with this new league system is that it'll be like a bell curve, because they say most players are in that average place. So why not place most players in those leagues, which I think actually will feel a lot better as an end user player.
That sounds great. So that people actually feel rewarded for their placements rather than having to grind back up. Did they reveal how these points are kind of going to be distributed? Because we know still MMR is hidden. It is under the layers of a league system.
Yes. But you know what's the craziest thing? I had a sit-down interview with Dustin Browder. Again, you'll be able to hear that on my show in its entirety. But I straight up asked him, like, why don't we get to have a transparent MMR system? And he said, I don't know. I agree with you. And I said, wait, what? He said, yeah, I think it should be transparent too. And I went, you're the guy who makes that decision, right? How come it's not? I said, well, could you tell me the argument that on the other side of, some of the people on the team are telling you? And he's like, I don't really understand it. He's like, I think it should be transparent. We're working toward that. And I was like, okay, awesome. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just like brilliant mind games to get me to stop asking that question, or what that is exactly.
He's such an honest guy. I don't think he's pulling your leg in any way.
Right.
But that's interesting, because right now, at least in the GIFs we've seen with the little videos, it's looking about the same kind of point dispersal. You win a game, you get 100. You lose a game, you get 90 or so. But I don't know. These divisions, 5 each for bronze through diamond, and it'll at least give goals, right? You feel like you can go places. That's the problem with the MMR.
Yeah.
Ultimately is 6 points. Nice job. You're now 3,056 instead of 3,052. It's like, oh, well.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that it will now be an average of about 200 points per game instead of 100 like we're at now. I don't know what that means specifically as far as a change, or if it's just sort of a new denomination that they're using, new chunk of, points earned. But the biggest change is this promotion and demotion states that the game gets into. So if you're on the cusp of going up or going down a level, you will have a promotion or demotion game that will be like have a big graphic representation of, hey, game is super important because this decides whether you're going to go down or go up a level. Pretty cool.
Awesome in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Scary, perhaps, when all I can think of is, guys, this is my placement game. Please win this for me. And they're nervous, and now I'm nervous because I'm helping him out maybe, or just, general flaming of, I can't believe this is my game that I'm about to fall down with.
Yeah, that's what I said to Dustin. I said, does this sort of pre-tilt people? Because, it's basically upping the ante and making everyone tense. And, he said, maybe we'll see some of that, but they really want to create this sense of drama so that you have a storyline that's your own. That's like, oh my gosh, this one, I really have to play well in order to move forward. But I also asked, I've had many situations, I'm sure you have too, where I'm only 3 or 4 points away from moving up or moving down. And I said, well, if I play a game and I earn 200 points and I was only a few points away, what happens to those extra points when I'm now pushed into this like promotion or demotion state?
Oh.
And they said, no, those points will be held in reserve. And so after you do it, you'll be awarded a whole big chunk of points that were sort of leftover overflow from the previous game.
Oh, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, well, and I love the story mode idea. Just
Yeah.
that we have that, if nothing else for streaming too, just like the drama of defending your title is
Yeah.
going to be really exciting. Whereas rank 1 right now, it's nebulous. I never know when it's going to happen. I have like a feeling I've lost 3 in a row. Maybe this is the one.
Right.
But ultimately,
And have you seen the graphics that they're implementing? I mean, they're
Yes.
so cool.
they're so flash. I need to grind my disco ball into a galaxy. That's my goal, because that disco ball is sweet, all in gold, even in bronze. Everything's looking fantastic. But Masters League, the galaxy spinning, and then that Grandmaster thing with like the Tesla coils. They made that thing jazzy.
So rad. And then the promotion games, it like energizes all up and it's like ready to burst when you're like, all you gotta do is win more and one more and it'll burst into the next tier. And it's like,
Or the
yeah.
demotion spinning with like depression energy as it
Yeah.
spirals down.
I mean, it's totally that thing from Hearthstone, right? Of like the joy of clicking open a pack.
Yeah.
Like they get it. They get those feelings of positive or negative reinforcement. Like they understand that it has to feel impactful.
And it does, to get people keep playing this. I mean, not everyone has been through the legacy that I have. The idea of getting any sort of reward in these kind of games is still mind-boggling, but now I've come to expect it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they did reveal a little bit of the MMR to us. They said that the current MMR standing, what we've built up right now over all our games, is going to have a loose guideline feel as we get into our tier and placement development.
Yeah, we asked a lot about, is this going to be a full wipe? Are we going to have a complete MMR wipe? And they basically said that would cause more chaos than it would, than anything. It basically said if there's like 5 to 10% of the people who are sort of getting poorly placed right now, a pure complete wipe would ruin it for that 90 to 95% also. So you would have complete chaos because the system would have no sense of where anybody belongs. So they said rather than doing that, the new placement matches are going to have much more impact, and there'll be half as many of them.
And it's just going to be kind of loose. So if you feel like you're entirely stuck and you can win your placement matches, scary thought, relying on other people, you'll be able to move up quicker than you would in the normal system once you've been placed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that to me is going to also be a scary moment when we'll play those 10 placement matches. I'm like, I'm going to be swallowing hard, man. It's, it's for all the marbles because it really wants to place you where it thinks you belong.
Yeah, that's going to be a tense bit. It'll be tough. I'll be excited. It might be worth it when the system comes out on June 15th or the week of to maybe take a step back, let the turmoil settle.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But we'll get into that strategy as we get closer to the date. There's queue restrictions going out too. No silence players at all allowed in Hero League.
I will tell you, when they made that announcement on stage at the little event I was at, there was cheers in the audience.
Well, everyone's experienced it, I guess, even
Yeah.
at all levels. And if you were previously silenced, if you built yourself up a good couple months of silences, that will not be removed, and you will continue to be kicked out of Hero League until that time elapses.
Yeah.
Brutal, but fair.
It's a good decision, I think. It's a good. Nobody likes starting a match and seeing that little silenced mark in front of a player, and you're like, oh boy, here we go.
Particularly these increasing reports that the guy in charge of the banning is the silenced one.
Yeah, not good.
We are also going to have a party restriction. It's still 2 max. They're looking at 3 down the road if the system works out. But as of right now, you cannot queue with someone who is a league apart from you or more than a league apart from you. So your silvers can go with your golds and your bronzes, but you can't take your silver buddy into your Master League game.
Right. Which I think is great. I mean, I've certainly seen plenty of matches where, there's like a level, 6 or 7 that's teamed up with a level 38. And it's like, what's happening here? How is the matchmaking system supposed to create any kind of correct matchup for that?
Yeah.
I totally get that.
And I don't do it because it's rude, and I want to play with my friends, of course. But on the flip side, I think of when I'm sitting in that situation, I'm going, what? Well, how? You're bringing your friend in? That's not cool, guy.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I understand it, but there's a place for that. It's quick match, and You can have all the fun there. You don't have to. It's not about like power leveling like in WoW. It's not about or in Diablo. But I will tell you this. I don't know how much this has been reported, but at the event on stage in the presentation of this new system, they straight up said, we're changing it to you can team up with up to 3 players in Hero League. They straight up said that's the way it's going to be. And based on the feedback from that event, they changed their minds.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, everybody that went got an email saying, hey guys, thanks for all the feedback. We've made a decision, and for now we're sticking with only 2 players can queue for Hero League. Thanks for all that feedback. So they must have heard a lot of people that didn't like that decision, which I'm very surprised by because I thought that was cool. I was more excited about being able to play with more people in a party.
I think if you were overwhelming the other 2, that's where it kind of gets hairy. So
Yeah.
I like the change. Plus, we have unranked draft coming. So everything's okay, right?
I guess.
We'll see. I know Dustin in his interview I watched today with Caldor was saying that they're looking to add it in maybe later once they've proven the system works, and maybe they can prove that to the people who were upset about the particular change that was then revoked.
Yeah, it's surprising to me, but it's another example of how quickly they are taking the feedback into account and rolling with the punches, and how facile they are with everything.
This is the most people's game that I've ever participated in.
Yeah, and that's to their credit. I think that's a great thing, and it shows the team is really listening.
Well, and I've just look at what you can do with a single BlizzCon. Like, we saw just Zool, like Lost Vikings, all these characters that keep rolling out because of just simple statements around the BlizzCon floor.
Yeah, it's totally true. That's cool.
So we got our look at rewards too. Our preseason rewards are going to be based on the highest rank you achieved during that season. Preseason has gone for a long time. If you were 16 and you fell down to 32, don't despair. You're still in that 20 to 10 bracket, and there's going to be a mount that gets upgraded to an epic mount version when you get rank 10 and above.
Yeah, pretty cool. But I think this is a great decision also because, it prevents people from getting to a certain rank or getting to rank 1, for example, and then just stopping play, or getting to Diamond League or something and being like, well, now I don't want to mess up my thing until the end of the season. There's really no reason not to keep risking because it's only the topmost level that you ever reached during that period.
Which is great. And plus, we're going to have that transparency with our actual score. We'll know when we're going to get demoted. So altogether, awesome changes. There was a couple other hints at things that won't be coming out with this particular patch in the June 15 week. They said that Arena is becoming Tavern Brawl rather than the ARAM it was going to originally be like we played at BlizzCon.
That is extremely exciting to me. I think that is such a great idea to have these crazy rules and, being able to really be creative with a specific mode. I'm all for that. That sounds awesome.
I hope that it still retains some of the basis of the game, though, because it's so exciting to me as an accessibility platform. For people who just want to try out the game, they don't really know hero abilities, and without having to pick talents along the way, that could be that avenue to get them in for good.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just am, as somebody who plays it a lot, I'm more excited about a place that, because Tavern Brawl is so cool in Hearthstone, like a place that, they can try out these wacky ideas and we can play a game that's, all Abathurs or something weird. Who knows what they're coming up with, but I'd love the idea of bizarre rule changes or one-off kind of ideas that there's no real other place for.
Definitely. And that's just, for health of the game and getting people into esports and, boring stuff like that. For the fun aspect of just having Tavern Brawl, like infinite mana everybody. Just go nuts. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait till that rolls out.
They also told us no map bans incoming. They want, at the very, very least, 12 maps in the pool in order to pull that off. Makes sense. If everyone bans one map, there's going to be someone who's upset in a 10-pool map system.
Yeah. I'm fine with that.
So at the summit, they also revealed, and certainly the season was kind of the big one that they wanted to gather everyone together for, but they also talked about 2 new heroes coming out, in which they tricked us a little bit by showing both abilities back and forth. Poor Arthas getting owned yet again on Twitter.
Yes, indeed. He got slammed.
Now, it wasn't Arthas wasn't any different when you played the game, was he?
He was, but I did not play. I'm not an Arthas main, or I barely play him at all. So all I know is that everybody was like, Arthas' talent tree is completely different. Arthas' talent tree is completely different. I was like, oh, interesting. But yeah, so I wish I could tell you specifics, but I don't even know him well enough to even tell you what he is now, because I don't play him. So.
Fair enough. I couldn't tell you about a murky build to save my life, so it's all good. I heard he has Icebound Fortitude at 7, and that's enough theming to make me excited. But Chromey was revealed as our first character, going to be coming out May 17th. A ranged assassin. Looks like we have another burst.
For sure. Another glass cannon, for sure. But my goodness, some really cool stuff, especially themed around her time travel-y, character misplaced in time stuff. It's such great lore and such cool talents or skills to reinforce that.
Part of the quote here is the first representative of the Azeroth Dragonflight, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe more dragons coming down the road.
Yeah, she doesn't. I mean, she has a lot of dragon flavor in her animations and stuff. She doesn't actually have a dragon form, which I was a little bummed about. I was hoping maybe one of her ults would be a full-on dragon form, but she is a very cool-looking character, especially built around that sort of like sand wizard idea, where you're manipulating crazy sands and hourglasses and stuff. Really cool stuff.
Now, there's a lot of abilities here. Is there one that just excites you the most?
Well, I played her. I played Medivh a bunch at the event. The fact that I think it's such a brilliant idea that she has her Q ability is this very powerful attack, but it only hits heroes. It doesn't hit anything other than heroes. So it kind of fixes that thing that we saw early on with Li Ming, where she was this powerful siege in the early game of just. So it gives Chromey a tremendous range. It's like a crazy range on this thing, but it only hits heroes.
Yeah.
So you can be this cool sniper from afar, but the 1 second cooldown to channel it really takes some getting used to. Like I saw the pro guys get it right away, but for me, I was like, oh, I'm getting owned because it takes a second to cast this thing.
That's a great workaround. I was sad when they had to naturally give that nerf to Li Ming that decreased her damage against structures. It was silly. Those magic missiles just destroyed things. But all that text that just starts piling on, it starts looking like a Diablo ability at some point.
Yeah.
I think this is a very elegant way to stop our bursts from becoming specialists.
Yeah. It's crazy too, though, but you find yourself like running over to a merc camp and realizing, oh, only one of my abilities does anything to these things. So... and her auto attack is very weak. So she's definitely a specialist in the sense of a attack heroes, kill heroes specialist.
Yeah, very controlly, as we can see by her two ultimates, which are neither one does any damage. We got the time trap putting down that stasis. Well, I guess that's her E there. It's the slowing sands for her first ability, which you can keep up indefinitely as long as you are channeling mana into it. It's about the size of a Nazebo zombie wall, which fits perfectly on just about every map, and seems to slow by a decent amount, about 40%.
Yeah, and it it says it drains mana, but it drains mana very slowly. You can have this thing up for a long time and not have to worry about your mana pool. People were just throwing it up and leaving it places. It's crazy. It's pretty large area, and then you have we were playing quick match type or custom games, so we were having Chromey versus Chromey. So there's like these two giant swirls that were sort of intersecting, and it gets a little nuts on the battlefield.
That's interesting. Her trait is also a fascinating idea. Time Walker. Chromey learns her talents one level early.
How cool is that, right? What a brilliant idea. It's just so clever and creative, I think.
I have to imagine that when you make a character like that, you design her first as though she didn't have this, and then you bump everything forward.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you put that in your head, you're making her a little weaker. I'm not sure. I know she has clairvoyance. We saw that that on the talent tree, she's going to be able to reveal a small area, and they added a nice little flavor effect with the dragon shadow going over it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's cool.
that'd be at level 6 now, and Uther gets it at level 7. So that's kind of neat.
Right? Yeah, I think that's such a neat way to express her. Like, I'm a time traveler. I could travel in time and get my skills early. So
Yeah.
so smart.
It
So
seems like her playstyle is going to be pretty darn global. Able to put up little traps, little areas that slow people down, and then you use those sand lasers from heaven, which we don't have a name for, just slamming down on everything.
well, the crazy thing is her W is an AoE, but it's the only AoE in the game that no one gets a warning about. So you have no. All you do is you see this dragon made out of sand erupt from her and shoot up into the sky, and then you have no idea where it's going to land as the other team. Your team still knows, but the other team has no idea where it's going. So there's this crazy, like, everybody scatter idea when that thing goes up in the air. Really clever and kind of throws everything into a really fun kind of chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people excited to get another burst assassin into the game, but it's going to be a lot more calculated, less whaley than our Li Mings. You're going to have to set up your little traps, be patient while they get rid of their stasis. Lots of stasis across both these characters.
Yeah.
And then slam down on them when it's finally out.
Yeah, she's cool, and she really does require you to stay positioned well because she's super flimsy. She has this crazy range, so you really do need to stay at the back of your pack and pick people off. There's a lot of like her hanging out, concealed in cover and shooting from these crazy long distances. Really interesting, cool character. How cool is it that we finally have a gnome in the game?
I know we can't get one in a cutscene, but it's in Heroes of the Storm. It happened.
Yeah.
And it's a dragon too, so kind of two birds, one stone maybe, but I think people are still holding out for a good old classic stomping around, tail swapping dragon.
Yeah, I certainly am. I would love that.
The second reveal was Medivh.
Yes.
And this guy looks nutty.
That's not exaggeration. That he is unlike any other character in the game, and I think he's going to blow the game open in so many interesting ways. Because he's got no fewer than 3 parts of his kit that are just weird and wacky and allows team plays that we've never seen before.
So I can make all sorts of assumptions off a list of abilities, but you faced him on the field and got to play as him.
I am so far undefeated as Medivh. So I'm going to retire undefeated. But yeah, he's crazy. So ultimately, he's sort of a defensive character. He's got this there's a crazy new effect in the game called, Protected, I think? Something like that. But basically, it's a new state that they've introduced for this character, and he can throw it on at a ridiculously low cooldown. It's like 5-second cooldown.
Oh, jeez.
You can make a character invulnerable, completely invulnerable. So he can't heal anybody, but he can run around on a 5-second cooldown just saying, nope, no damage for you. Nope, no damage for you. Nope, no damage for you. And save people in these crazy situations, which is wild, I think. Plus, he's got his mounted form is a raven. He transforms into a raven, classic sort of Medivh, the character from WoW or from Warcraft, which is awesome. He can fly over anything. He's not impeded by any structure in the game. You can fly into your enemy's base all the way into their core if you want, or all the way into their Hall of Storms even. And he's completely invulnerable in that Raven state. You can't touch him. You can't stun him. You can't even target him as the enemy team. So he's kind of this like human recon. He's kind of like Tarandi's owl, but a character.
Interesting. I gotta ask about Protected.
Yeah.
Stuns. Did they work?
No, you are not. I believe you can be stunned beforehand, but then you become protected. I think that's how it works. I think you become protected. You just ignores all damage. So maybe stuns do work. I can't quite remember. I should have paid more attention to that. But you ignore all damage when you're protected.
Right. I mean, that's enough for me. Like, if Thrall's
Yeah.
running down me the lane and I see some sort of protective bubble pop over him, I'm already scared regardless of if I can still lock him down for 2 seconds or whatnot.
Yeah. And you think like combine that with an Illidan or a Tracer, and all of a sudden, and maybe even an Abathur hat on one of those two guys, or a Tassadar shield, and all of a sudden you're able to, it's this crazy amount of just dive ability, and you get this get out of jail free card. Pretty crazy.
Chad is telling us that it is CCable.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just ignoring damage. Okay.
But even so, that's really exciting. You brought up Tassadar. That's a fascinating idea because his big problem is topping people off, getting their health up in the first place for the shield to have meaning.
Right.
If
well, that's
they
why
don't take that damage in the first place.
Yeah. The thing that's so crazy to me is the low cooldown on it, because they really want you to be using it all the time, which one of the things I asked Dustin was like, do you guys envision that like lengthening games? Because it feels like you're just ignoring large portions of the damage that's happening. But the thing they keep saying is that he's not going to be a solo support. He's not classified as a support character because he can't sort of carry a team support wise. But he's this really interesting utility specialist that gives you a lot of really wild plays. And we haven't even talked about his portals yet, which are like blowing my mind.
And great theming for the guy too.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
So what was it like what's the portal do?
So the portal allows you to create two ends of a portal, a door to walk through and a door to exit, and they have a really long range, and anybody on your team can walk through the door and emerge on the other side. And the portals themselves are not targetable, so you can't destroy a portal that's been set up. So they're there. They're happening. So they're basically giving an entire team blink, for example. One of the videos that they showed was like setting up a portal and just skipping an entire a set of turrets and a wall and letting a team go back behind, take down a fort, and then retreat back through the portal without having to take down the wall first.
Brutal.
It's craziness, dude. And there's all these talents that he can spec into that let you do crazy stuff. Like you can turn your trait into a action button that lets you set the other point of the portal. So usually what happens in its native state, you throw a portal down where Medivh is standing, and then you set its target location. But your level 1 talent, you can set the target and the endpoint. So you can create these wacky plays where you're giving somebody an out, like a Zeratul can blink in, do all kinds of crazy damage, and then you could throw down a portal and get him out of there, no problem.
Listen, I'm not going to save you personally, but here you go. If you click it, you're okay.
Yeah.
That's freaky. Just the idea of him being, before I get too excited here, how's his damage? We have the ability to shoot an arcane bolt with arcane rift.
Yeah.
Can he kill?
Not really.
Okay.
I think that's there to have him have a little bit of lane presence, a little wave clear stuff, but it's not great. He's not going to be that guy who's going to be giving you a lot of damage or even jungling much. But it's there. It does. You can contribute a little bit in team fights, but I think you're mostly spamming that protection and giving people crazy portals to get out of dodge and scoping out. Because he becomes invulnerable himself when he becomes a Raven. So he can get real deep, mount up, and be invulnerable. In a fight. He can't contribute when he's in the Raven form, but it's going to lead to all these insane plays.
Yeah, anytime you cast a spell, you get knocked out of the Raven. But that's the sort of thing I'm scared about. Maybe even stepping on Asmodan's toes a little bit, is you just barely get away. And then you see that Raven hunting you, and you're like, no, it's okay, I made it my base, no worries. And he just pops down, blasts you with a spell, and uses his portal to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, or you're trying to sneak a boss or something, and all of a sudden there's this bird flying overhead, and you're like, oh, they all know about it. It's pretty neat. And there's all these great talents. There's talents to, like, if your team goes through your portals, they emerge with block, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And there's a talent where he the protected state will explode for AoE damage once it
Nice.
expires. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff they're adding.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention with Chromey, my favorite, one of her level 20 talents is when you do her Q and you shoot that long-ranged missile. One of her 20 talents is that it remembers the last place you shot it, and a mirror version of her appears when you do the next one from that last location. So you have two of them that sort of triangulate at the same time.
Oh, nice. Oh, how timey. I like that.
Right? Super cool.
Man, level 20s are getting so awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I came away so impressed with both of these characters was like it really feels like we're at this place where they're being very creative and very willing to throw a lot of chaos into the mix and make people rethink their strategies. And it's not just, hey, here's another assassin that does a lot of damage, or here's another tank that is stout, whatever. It really is these characters that add a variety to the game that is going to be very interesting to see what people do with them.
Everyone's becoming a playmaker. There's not a single hero on a team that you couldn't possibly put the camera on and say, check out this moment. Look how they saved their team or added to the damage of this particular ability.
Yeah.
Polybomb,
cool.
His first ultimate. As someone who's recently got into Lost Vikings a lot, I feel ruined.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about Lost Vikings for that, but that's true. Don't stand next to each other because you will become infinite sheep.
Yeah, infinitely chaining if possible. After 1.5 seconds, any nearby hero is also polymorphed.
Yeah, it has a little sheep and it has a little area of effect around it, and anybody that's standing in that area of effect becomes the sheep, and it can just keep passing around as long as you want. Pretty cool.
I was wondering what sort of point and click abilities we would get in the game that could counter Tracer. Of course, with Tracer just being everywhere right now, it's immediately where my mind went, and this is one of them.
Yeah. It's a fun thing too. I think adds a little silliness that is really fun to see a fight and then all of a sudden sheep start popping up everywhere.
Well, and a position ruiner for sure, as everyone has to scatter apart. Interesting. Now, the Leyline Seal, his second heroic, fires off a blast of energy down the ley. Is this down the ley line? It says. Is it just a line effect or?
Yeah, it's a straight line. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just concerned that there was a whole level of maps we didn't understand, and they were about to reveal, guys, you didn't know this, but on Blackheart's Bay, there's ley lines everywhere.
Yeah, it's like tectonic plates on all the maps.
And I could only shoot them down that, and I have to draw the lines. And
that'd be cool.
But no, just a line effect that puts heroes in stasis.
It's a strange thing. I had a rough time. I kept picking Polybomb because the few times that I tried this one, it just feels it's an interesting idea, right? If a group of heroes is standing in a straight line, you get to stasis all of them. But I find it to be it's not very useful to have the entire team stasised in a line, right? Because then what do you do? It seems like an odd advantage to get is the team sort of in a line all stuck. But I'm sure people will figure out how to use it.
The horror scenario to me is just ETC's waiting, and you have to sit there for 3 seconds while ETC just, waits and waits, and here comes the mosh. You know it's there. It's like when you're Dahaka and you burrow for half a second. You're like, I messed up. I'm dead when I come up. Well, at least I'm delaying, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, that sounds like it'll go real well with these hard-to-aim skill shots coming out of someone like Chromey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Another character with crazy stuns. It's going to be interesting with a crazy stun ultimate. It's pretty cool.
So lots of people still continue to be a little upset that we're not getting more supports in the game right now. But I'm really excited for this wizard to come on in because he can just maybe even open up us to supportless comps if you're negating that much damage.
It's going to be interesting to see what people do with him. I mean, the games that I played. Did I mention that I'm undefeated with him? Because I'm very proud of that. The games that I played, we always matched him with a real support, which I think worked really well because then you actually have health regen on your team. But he's pretty powerful, and I think once people start figuring out these crazy plays with the portals, we're going to see some really high level inventive usages of that. I think.
Any hint? I mean, we have 2 World of Warcraft characters in a row. Last year, the Eternal Conflict was pretty cool. 3 Diablo heroes in a row and 2 maps. We got the movie coming up. Any sort of hint at a map of any kind, event?
I asked about both of those things. Browder said that he felt that 3 Diablo heroes in a row was fatiguing for people. He thought that it made people feel like it was a little enough already. Let's get something else in there. But they did like the events. They did like the sort of fun quests that the events brought with them. I specifically asked about a new map. He said there's new maps coming, but they weren't ready to talk about any of that or give a time frame. I also asked, like, when are we going to see another Overwatch hero? I said I suspected that another Overwatch hero would come pretty quickly because Overwatch is hitting store shelves. And he said there will be more Overwatch. And I specifically asked 2 questions that were very much inspired by you guys on this show. One of which was, you'll be happy to know you nailed this. You guys nailed this prediction. They also showed at the event a Widowmaker skin for Nova.
Yeah.
So they basically confirmed that Widowmaker is too close to Nova to be its own hero. So kind of a double-edged sword, but cool that they're doing this skin, and it looked like a very cool skin. But I also asked specifically about what you guys always talk about, or you, Kyle, specifically talk about, with regard to theming heroes based on the game that they come from. And I was like, I want to see another Overwatch character because I want to know if they're going to all have this ammo instead of mana.
Yeah.
And Browder was like, no, it's hero to hero. And I said, oh, well, it's cool because in Diablo, they all sort of have this collection mechanic. He's like, do they? No, he goes, that wasn't intentional. That just happened.
Imaginary lines drawn. All right.
I know. I was so disappointed because, I hear you guys talking about that. I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. He's like themed from a game. He's like, no, we don't care about any of that. Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of people are a little bummed about the Widowmaker skin.
Yeah.
From a silhouette point of view, from a game design point of view, I'm rather pleased with it. I'm a monster kind of guy, so we have enough humans right now, and we're getting more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I just, the idea of redundancy on heroes game to game is a little bit of a bummer, but I guess, there's no shortage of stuff to mine from across their different games for heroes. I liked the idea that maybe someday we would literally have every character from Overwatch in Heroes of the Storm, but I guess that's not happening.
Yeah, definitely. And I know very recently they said that, Hammer was originally slated to be one of the characters that showed themselves in the StarCraft games, the Sergeant there, but ended up going with, their own version of it just to make the character more unique. So we didn't have more Marines running around.
Right.
So we could see something like that down the line. I personally, my favorite cutscenes that they do for any of their games are the ones when there's just dudes being dudes, when it's zealots attacking zerglings. Yeah. It's cool to see Illidan doing his thing, but darn it, I miss, the raptor riding by, the mage casting the Frost Nova and whatnot.
Totally. Yeah, those are awesome. I would love to. I think you guys mentioned last week the idea of a zergling as a hero. I think that'd be so cool.
Well, also just the excitement factor of having a Carbot skin in there for him, because
it's
adorable.
Yeah.
Well, anything else about these characters that you noticed while you were out on the floor?
I was very bad with Chromey right away. She's gonna be a real tricky character. I think people are gonna pick her up quickly, but again, she's a real glass cannon, and I think there's gonna be some real fun stuff to do with her. But I don't know. I feel like for me the takeaway was Medivh and how wild he's going to be, and what a swerve it's going to be for the player base, because he's going to allow people to do stuff in such interesting new ways. And this throwing protection on somebody that's in a position that you knew they were going to die before. I mean, it's like having mini Uther divine shields all the time, every 5 seconds.
At least the CC goes through, because oh my goodness, poor Uther if otherwise.
Right.
Just one final point I just got to ask: Portal easy to use? I click it and then I go.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, very easy to use. Yeah, and it has like a little sort of energy line between the two, so you can clearly see how they're linked. But I think for solo queuing, it's going to be real tricky, because it's the kind of thing that's not easy to communicate to your team that I'm about to throw down a portal and we're all going to be able to get out of dodge now or whatever. I think It's going to definitely give the advantage to players with communication.
Yeah, we don't see medevac used really at all,
No.
particularly because Stim is just so easy to make a comp around. Hey, we got Morales. Okay, let's get that Illidan or whatever have you.
Yeah.
But this is on the basic toolkit.
Right.
So it
And
will
also,
get used.
as I said, there's a lot of these talents through Medivh's kit that give you benefits for going through a portal, and to be able to communicate that to your team and let your team know, hey, if you go through here, you're going to get blocked, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. I think that's a little tricky, and I think it's going to require people to pay a little more attention.
Well, I'm a little sad to hear that we may not be seeing some sort of giant World of Warcraft event, particularly, you mentioned the 3 heroes in a row, when I think a lot of people are putting their money on the next hero after this, if we're being a little greedy, is going to be Gul'dan.
You'd think, right? I mean, he's such a big part of the movie and the new expansion. I feel like I would love to see Gul'dan. I'd love to see how they do Gul'dan. That'd be rad.
Well, anything else from the summit as an entirety? I'm sure it was just a bombardment of information.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. We were able to sort of just casually talk to these guys and ask all these kinds of questions. I mean, I found out that they are actively working on systems to deal with AFK players, which is a thing that I was very much concerned about because it happens way too often. And they're trying to figure out ways to make that fair, and whether or not instead of having to play with a bot through the whole thing, or how that affects your ranked points and all that stuff. There's evidently no concrete solutions right now, but they're actively working on that. It's tons of information, tons of little things here and there about how they're conceptualizing the game and where they want it to go and what they want it to do. It was a really neat event, and it's clear that these guys are really passionate about this project.
That's so awesome to hear. One, that a game has been going this long for them. I mean, 3 years if you're looking at the development from the SC2 map. And it feels like they're finally finding their comfort zone. They've dealt with the naysayers who said you can't make a game that's team-based like this. You have to have star players that level up by themselves.
Right.
And now they're starting to stretch those legs, and it's awesome to see.
It is.
If you think of anything after the fact, tweet it on over. We'll start Jeff Cannata tweets here.
Oh, man, I'd be honored. That'd be cool.
Because I would love to hear any other tidbits that slip through.
I have to say, right. I could be wrong.
Right. He even got a couple rights in the interviews I watched, so I'm happy to see that he hasn't been frazzled by our bumper.
It's so great.
We did have a Tracer nerf this week, though it's certainly buried under the wealth of awesome information, but it's a general nerf. It's just everything kind of went down. They encouraged Locked and Loaded to get some use. That's the one where you have to play the quick time event and hit that reload right in the middle, or the last 50% of the reload.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see her being picked any less often, that's for sure.
Actually, according to HOTS logs, if we're looking at just in general win rates, she's down to 48%, with top bans still, though. So interesting how we're all a little slow to maybe adapt to these changes, whereas with a decent amount of games played, Rexxar leading the way, second top win rate.
Look at that. Who knew? Just a little bit of tweak to Rexxar.
Now, of course, keep banning Kael'thas. He's still crazy.
Yeah, I see him banned a lot lately. Oh, one of the other quick things that I just remembered that I will mention is how much the team respects and likes HOTS logs. They are all very quick to point out that it is not completely accurate, but I said, well, why don't we just have those stats in the game? Like, don't we want those stats? And they said, yeah, they want to have more robust stat tracking in the context of the game that's actually, 1-to-1 accurate. So, but that was
That's
cool.
good. It'll get easier once we have seasons too, because right now, if I look at my profile, I even see Haunted Mines on there still with my 32% win rate. I was happy.
Is there anybody that has over 50% win rate on
someone? So it can't all be losses, right? I have a bad week. Someone has a good week, right?
You'd think.
But it's just outdated at this point, and it'll be nice if we can have that. But yeah, HOTS logs inside of the game, just because I want all those toys. I love organizing when I don't feel like playing.
Yeah.
It's that XCOM thing. I'm going to go on a mission, then I'll come back home and buy new guns. But Tracer continue to be seen, though, on the numbers, not doing so hot. This weekend is DreamHack Austin. That's where Garrett is right now, as we mentioned at the top of the show. Cheered on Willie Dills, who is competing in the Open for Hearthstone, which is pretty awesome. Enjoy yourselves some esports. Watch yourselves during esports, though, because as we talked about before with the sort of levels back and forth of mechanical skill and then information coming in, Dreadnought's casting, so there's going to be a lot of awesome information.
Yeah.
That also means that come Sunday, come Monday, particularly with these, rewards possibly in play, we might have some angry people.
Oh, good. That's all I need.
They see that sweet, Divine Shield ETC combo, and they say, I can do that in Solo League, and then flame their Uther when he misses.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, 3 losses this morning. They were not pretty. My favorite is when people quit on the team, 10 minutes in. That's the best.
Oh, and be vocal about it, right?
Yeah.
Is Raynor still working out well for you? Or there's definitely been a switch in how you can carry a game in the last month.
Yeah, you know what? I rediscovered Brightwing.
Nice.
And have been playing a lot of Brightwing for wins. And I feel like having good heals on my team and knowing when to hit that polymorph on certain characters has done me a lot of good as far as getting wins.
It's interesting to see how that changes. At one time, it'll be that burst assassin, that wizard for your team. And they'll switch over to, now we've stopped paying attention to the auto attackers.
Right.
I wonder if maybe Li Ming just isn't doing so well right now because she got banned for so long, nobody practiced. And now it's go time and no one's ready.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I was playing a lot of Kael'thas and doing well. But again, Kael'thas has started to get banned. And and Brightwing is sort of my go-to right now to sort of give my team just a solid heal numbers and sort of utility on getting that polymorph at just the right moment.
Well, and the XP you can provide too, which has just become so important since that November patch, is really awesome on Brightwing. We do have 2 Dustin Browder tweets. Dustin agrees we need a troll hero, first of all. That's
not a hero that is that trolls your games.
No.
We have plenty of those.
Though maybe Medivh is that, right? I mean, the way it sounds.
Good point. Yeah.
Plenty of opportunity. I mean, we've got, Helping Hand on Stitches where you can pull a guy. I'd be very surprised if anyone is actually going to put a portal in the wrong place. It looks like everyone will have sight of it, at least, and know where they're up to.
Yeah.
What does that leave us? So we got a Worgen. Is Sylvanas, does she count as Forsaken? She's a Banshee Queen, but she's not all bony.
Yeah, she's not exactly... I mean, I guess Stitches kind of fits that in that category a little bit, but...
Yeah, I guess it'll be a while before we see a straight, undead Forsaken.
Yeah. That'd be cool, though. I'd love to see like a real undead character. It would be fun.
We need a Draenei.
We definitely need a Draenei. Yeah.
Make that a Retribution Paladin.
Oh, yes.
Big old crystal hammer.
That's my main WoW character is a Draenei Ret Pally.
Nice.
That's who I main. Yeah. So I would love that.
Overwatch has a nicer UI. And Dustin Browder has declared, we'll fix.
Yes, there was a lot of discussion about that at the event too. We were all talking about those end game screens on Overwatch and the vote up, vote down. They seem to really like all that stuff, and they want to steal some of that for this game as well. Although they kept saying that it's much harder to do in their tech to do that like replay thing. So
yeah, Overwatch was built from the ground up. So I know this is the SC2 engine. It has its limitations. I don't even know how they gauge that.
Yeah.
That's just even find the person who was, the best play over a 30-minute game. Overwatch is a little shorter. I'm sure the demand and taxing on the machine that goes into that in the system, the servers, are a little less so.
Well, I think when you load a replay in on Heroes, it's literally just playing through all the steps through the engine rather than, I think in Overwatch, it's kind of just capturing the video of what just happened. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah, I think you watch from your own angle for now. I know they've shown that they are going to have lots of camera angles. It doesn't look like they're going to do a full movable camera, but it's set up around the stage to kind of get those crisp little shots.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And with Dustin Browder's tweets, that'll do it for today. Awesome information. So much to speculate on in the future. But really, thank you so much for being here, Jeff.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure, man. I love it. I'm like I said, I love the show. I listen every week, and you guys are doing a great job. So I'm glad to contribute in some small way.
Oh, well, thank you. You're a delight to have here. You're welcome anytime, seriously.
Oh, thanks. Don't tempt me, man. I'll be here every week, and then.
Hey, I mean, we'll have an off-air discussion if you want. I want to thank the patrons for supporting this. So patreon.com/ITN to become a patron. Other than that, Jeff, where can people find you?
Well, you can always follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Cannata, and that's spelled with 2 N's and 1 T. And probably the most pertinent thing, I do a bunch of different shows, but my video game show is called DLC. And like I said several times, on Monday's episode, we will have that full interview I did with Dustin Browder at the end of the show. And we'll also be talking about a lot of other cool stuff like Uncharted 4 and stuff. So you might want to check that out. You can find that show at 5by5.tv/DLC.
And thank you so much for making your spoiler-free reviews. I love those.
Oh, all right, on, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
You can't. That's a market missing. You need those. At so many places, they'll show you things you don't want to see. I know you're dedicated to avoiding trailers.
That's right. Yeah, I go in completely unsullied if I can. But I feel like my channel is a safe place for people that don't want to be spoiled.
Yeah, unsullied. Good topical word usage. Awesome. Well, you can find this show over on Twitter at Into the Nexus, ITNcast. If you want to email the show, we didn't do any emails today, but those can be shot to itncast@gmail.com. You can find Garrett when he's here at Garrett Art. You can find him out on the floor on DreamHack, somewhere out there right now. Tweet at him. He's tweeting live from that. You can follow me at Kyle Ferguson, and you can find my Here's the Storm lessons at kyleferguson.com, as well as my solo Q&A show that happens over on Wednesdays. Oh, and I might as well announce it here. I'm having a 2v2 tournament this Tuesday over on the Learn to Play show, and we'll see what kind of combos come up. I'm just going to give this one for free. Gazlo Hammer is just disgusting.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's gross. You can't close on that.
Just stay at range and just work people, huh?
Just hide out. It's like the Morales Hammer combo where you just want to kill him. I don't know who you want to kill more, Morales or Hammer.
Yeah.
But it's just something starts boiling your blood. You dive in there and get yourself destroyed. As always, Doghouse Systems supports the show. They've been supporting us for such a long time. Use the code ITN and you'll get yourself a free 120 gigabyte solid state drive added to your already amazing Doghouse system. And of course, Tweaked Audio, who ships across the pond for free, noise reducing earbuds, 30% off when you use the code ITN there. We thank them for their support. We thank you guys for listening. And thank you, Jeff, again for joining me here. We will see you guys next week for episode 105. Take care.